Scooby-Doo. So
Yeah.
all right, everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer. Miss Danny Katz, fresh off of a very successful Friday Farcast debut last week, is here with us. This is episode number 68 of Words. It's been one more week than it usually is between when we do shows. Seems like it was really quite a long time ago. It was the Tulsi Adaptogenic Tea episode, but here we are, and good afternoon. It's Wednesday afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's Wednesday afternoon. We can attribute the extra week to the temporal clusterfuck that is daylight savings psyop.
Well, it's actually more just because of my travels, but let's blame it on that. Like, I like that. That's a good one.
I like my version's way more poetic.
I like it. And it is the biggest, it's kind of like the most low-hanging fruit, obvious psyop that has the most amount of sway. Oh my God, my microphone did something weird. Hold on a second, let me fix it. Okay, it's like as soon as, let me see what's happening here. Hold on a second. My microphone never wants to do what I want it to do. I want it to be on. Okay, I want to push pause for a second. This is pissing me. I'm pushing pause. About that. Anywho, it's like the low-hanging fruit, obvious thing that nobody really thinks about when we're talking about these bigger issues of how we're being like fooled and fucked and like having our reality augmented. And if you think about it, like I would be curious to go back and look at the arc of my work and see if like I'm on the hot trail of something for a period of time. And at the time it sort of loses its potency as somewhere around daylight savings time, almost like, uh-oh, they're about to open that portal, or that one's become so obvious we can't hide it anymore, got to shift it, right? It's kind of like, have you ever had days like when your GPS doesn't work either?
Yes.
Right? Like it's like that almost, right? Like there's some shifting or changing, some updating that's happening so that people don't realize that like they moved the town a mile to the west or something like that, right? Yeah.
So I've talked about, and I write about it in my new book, Fragmentation, and how fragmentation is one of the weapons of hierarchy and the social engineers. So Robert Forti edited my book. He sent me back like this big notebook with all his handwritten notes. And he's saying that David Bohm talked about this in Wholeness in the Implicate Order. I'm so sad. I left all my David Bohm books back in LA, so they're all gone. But now I'm diving back into Bohm, how fragmentation is just such a weapon of control because you get flow going, you get momentum going, and then fragmentation comes in and is like, it's like a needle skipping on a record or like a speed bump in the road that just like disrupts. And that is absolutely what daylight savings time is.
So have you read Synchronicity by F. David Pete? Because he refers to that stuff, Bohm stuff, a lot in his book. They were good friends, and Bohm figures heavily into Pete's ideas about synchronicity, right?
How do you spell Pete?
F. David Pete, P-E-A-T. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a really good book. And it really, like, that was the book we were really into when Michael and I were first getting going in Project Kids before Glass Bead Game kind of thing happened, right? Yes, right? So the couple of things, I read this interesting article last week because every time that we're getting to close to elections, this topic comes up again because it's actually the thing that most people agree about. So it's like, why can't it get passed? Right? Like everybody, this is not a partisan issue. This is one thing that could unite everybody, right? But the article is basically like, don't get too mad about the fact that Congress doesn't seem to be able to pass this, because even if it did pass, that would just start now the argument about whether we go to standard time or daylight time. And there's a huge divide there. I don't know if the huge divide is political or partisan that way, but there's a huge divide between scientists and economists on that one. So you know that then the left will go with the scientists and the right will go with the economists or whatever kind of bullshit. And the divide is over, like, the daylight savings time would be better for the economy because it would stay light, darker, and people spend more money later in the day. And so right? Like that, they spend more money in the like later in the day when it stays lighter. And the scientists say that it's better for your circadian rhythm to get sleepy earlier, and darkness makes you tired earlier.
That's the winner. Like humanity versus the economy. Why is this even a conversation? One thing serves the human health and our physiology, and the other thing serves what?
Okay.
The IMF, the World Bank, and
this is the argument between experts. They're not even considering what the people think. Now, for me, I agree with you. I agree with you. Humanity should win. But for me, I personally feel better during daylight savings time. So I would rather have it stay late longer all year round. For me, personally, it isn't a political thing or a
daylight longer. What does that mean?
Daylight longer is daylight savings time. Dark earlier is standard time.
Yeah, I like standard time.
Okay, so I like that makes sense. You and I like for all the things we have in common, we have some things that are different, and that's one of them, right? So I can see where this could become like an actual argument, but they're not even deferring to what people like. They're just going, well, some scientists say this and economists say that. So it's always either the scientism or the economics, right? Now, there's probably like, you know, this gets into like weird shit, right? Does the world all need to be in unison? Or is it okay for states to have different things, right?
Well, talk about fragmentation. If we can't agree on a measurement of our temporal moments,
right?
That's create even more chaos, which, as you say that will probably be their next op.
Right.
To create more chaos.
All right. I mean, they won't pay us for this one either, for bringing this, right? But okay, but here's the thing. I completely agree with you about, like, I'm totally against deferring to the expert class for anything at this point,
right?
Because I'm just over that shit. But how do we resolve the difference between you and I? Because we're both humans, and we're both saying what we're saying because you feel better when it's standard time, and I'm saying it. How do we do that?
Honest, like, I'm not that attached to the one or the other. Pick one. I don't even care what it is, and that's what it is, and stop changing it.
Right. Okay.
That would be my preference. For me, it doesn't make sense as it's getting colder and darker to have less daylight. That just does not make any sense to me.
Right. But it also feels weird then in the summer when it is warm outside and still 90 for it to be dark. Right. So it's the same. It's the reversible jacket again, right? Everything's a goddamn reversible jacket. Right?
Light in the summer. So it's like there's already more light. So I feel like like I said, I don't even feel that attached to one or the other. Just freaking pick one.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I understand, and I mostly like agree with that. But yes, when they run out of like all of these other issues, they'll go to that one.
Completely.
But yeah, I think so much of the shenanigans, if you see it one way, or the opportunities, if you see it another way, are dependent on coordinates, and coordinates are not just spatial, they're also temporal. But the most complicated coordinates, and the ones that are the most meaningful, include both temporal and spatial aspects. And so fucking with the time fucks everything up.
Completely. And I love that you just said opportunity, because I coined a new word that I launched in my last minute podcast with Michael Wan, psy-opportunity. Yeah. Every psy-op is an opportunity. And I think it's wise for those of us who are attuned to psyops to start thinking of them in this way and see how they can benefit us.
I had a great show last night with Benjamin Balderson and SB Alger. Do you know either of them?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So
Alger sounds familiar.
So Alger, he used to have a show called RX Picture Show, that the same Tracy that Robert didn't want to say her last name last time used to be on a lot, right? And so that's how a lot of people know him. But he also is one of the panel on weaving spiders.
Okay.
And then Benjamin is his channel's Odin's Alchemy. He's into spagyrics and lab alchemy and all of that kind of stuff. And he's really cool. So I was supposed to do a show with SB and Jim, who was his co-host on RX Picture Show, but Jim at the last minute decided to get married. And so that I can understand not wanting to spend the first night of your honeymoon with yours truly if you're not married to me, right? Huh?
Do you need a green card? Why are people still doing that?
I think they didn't do it the legal way. They did it like a very spiritual kind of thing.
Okay.
They did a very traditional, interesting thing that I'd never heard of before. That was kind of fascinating. So congratulations to you, Jim and wife.
Congratulations.
But so Ben stood in for Jim, and so all hilarity ensued, right? It was kind of a different tone show, but we got into like a pretty lengthy discussion about similar idea to what you're talking about, right? Just in terms of not like how vulnerable even those of us who think we have it all figured out are to certain kinds of cognitive infiltration or paralleling. We were talking about this idea of parallel construction and paralleling, and you come up with an idea that's almost exactly the truth, but just like with one distortion that is really sexy off, and that people go for that distortion. And so our ability to not be swayed by things that are sexy is the opportunity with every psy-op.
I totally fell for one yesterday. One of the weak points that I'm transmuting is the fucking customer service weaponization. And I have been working on this consulting proposal for a month, and I finally got the go ahead to send it in, and I realized, oh, I need to put logo, like my logo on paper to make it a letterhead. And I wasted 2 whole days trying to figure out, how do I make the logo appear on the first page, but not the rest of the pages, and the footer appear on only the last page. And I'm trying to get customer service from Microsoft, which I pay for. And all I'm getting is text chat, and they're all in the Philippines. So you're texting and they're flimsy grasp on the English language. And it's fine. Like, I have respect for people who speak multiple languages, but if the only customer service you're offering me is by text chat, you better have that shit dialed. Your nouns and your verbs need to align, but none of them did. And no one could help me. Like, they didn't understand what was going on. So I called like a million times, and I'm getting more and more triggered and more and more triggered. They're all in the Philippines. None of them speak English very well. And I asked one of them, may I have your name? Oh, we're not allowed to give you your name. So as I'm getting more and more triggered, now I'm just calling her Microb, Tom Kakai. I'm just going like cuckoo because I'm like, are you hearing me, Microb?
All right, well, this show is already getting so off track, but it's totally fine. I love it. So first of all, that's the title. Are your nouns and your verbs aligned? Right? Okay, I love that. But okay, couple of things. 100%. I'm to the point now where if I am paying for something, I want human-to-human contact within 24 hours. Yes. End of story, right? Yes. Like Patreon sends you this thing. It's like, oh, well, we have a long line, so maybe sometime 3 weeks from now. And then when I figure out my problem and I don't respond to that, I keep sending me, did we help you? Did we help you? No, you didn't fucking help me. I said I need help now, right? You've made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from me. All I want is a 3-minute phone call. Like, right? Like, that's it. So yes, if I'm paying, I want there to be someone on the phone within 24 hours, right? And I think those chat things are fine for customer service on stuff when you haven't bought anything yet, right? Like when you're on something looking to, and you have a question about whatever it is, that's fine, right?
But not even, because if you want my business, put some up. These are billion-dollar corporations.
100% correct. And if they can't answer your question, here's the phone number, call, right? I understand. Sometimes people have a question that is easily even automated a response, right? So I get that on a certain extent. I have never yet, and I think I would lose my shit if someone told me they're not allowed to tell me their name. Whenever I talk to someone, if there's been any like thing where like a problem has been solved, or when they say, okay, I've taken care of it, it will ship out on Monday, or it'll be there next week, I always get their name so I can refer back to so-and-so told me so, right? Or also, sometimes when I get really good service, I want their name because sometimes they call with the survey after, and I don't always respond to those. But if I get good service, I want to help them. I want them to get their extra dollar or whatever the fuck it is.
It's also human. It's like the base foundational level of human to human interaction is knowing one another's names.
So that there's no, that just sounds crazy to me. And I think that a big deal needs to be made about that in general.
Yep.
On to the more important stuff, though. Still really important stuff. Just so you know, Mikrob and Tom Kha Kai are Thai, not Philippine.
I know, but I couldn't think of any Philippine dishes, and you have to understand this was like
Lumpia.
2 days of this frustration and multiple calls. I just didn't give a fuck at that point.
Okay,
so it was egg drop soup. Like, I didn't care.
Okay, so lumpia is the Philippine version of egg rolls. So now you have one, okay? But what's funny about this is, so when, like, I probably have told you this before about like how good my mom is at personifying like stuffed animals and inanimate objects and stuff like that, right? Oh yeah, my mom, like, like my mom should have written children's books, right? Because she's really good at developing these like really fleshed out characters, right? With not dumb stuff. Okay, that's not dumb. Not the way most authors do, where they're giving you some like deep and meaningful background, but just like with all the little oddities of like, you know, what color they like, what their favorite food is, which is their favorite opera aria, did it, like all this just like random stuff, but it's like fun, it's fun for like a kids kind of thing, right? So like one of the ways, because my mom is not able to connect emotionally on anything that actually matters, I think she tried to substitute for some of that by buying us a lot of things, and then also by like doing a lot of like imaginary thinking, you know, like magical thinking kind of things with my sister, especially. I was pretty busy at the gym, but my sister was not. So my sister, all of her stuffed animals that my mom bought her had fully fleshed out, ridiculous personalities. And at a certain point, we hit a point where like we had run out of like typical names and atypical names and all that stuff. And so we had a series of bunny rabbits that were all given Thai food names, including Mikrob, right? And Mikrob became, I'm making such a fool out of myself by sharing this story, but I don't even care. So Mikrob like became like the most sort of like attention seeking and talking of the babies at this point, right? Which is interesting because Mikrob is MK, right? So both my mom and myself and my sister, but my sister too, she was expressing more typical things kids do with stuffed animals. We're sort of like living out alters through Mikrob. And he even had this little necklace that had an MK on it, right? And, and he was like obsessed with, huh?
Did your mom make the necklace?
No, we got it. Like, remember, like at that time in like the late 90s or so, where like there was like you could go to these stores and like make your own jewelry.
Oh, like Build-A-Bear.
Yeah, like stuff, right? So there was like a collar he had on that was one of those bracelets, right? But it would be like whenever one of us wanted something or wanted to do something but didn't want to own up to it ourselves, we would say like Mikrob wanted to do it, kind of thing, right?
Okay, there are multiple reasons, just to take us further off track, why this is relevant. Our family cat's name was Thai food.
Oh,
that was
the same fucking programming. Yeah, this is shit. Okay, because it's
same
great.
Programming. We found him in Van Nuys near a Thai restaurant, so we named him Thai food. But there was this like, I think it's still there, this like super authentic Thai restaurant in Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard. I'm blanking on the name.
It's like one of those with lots of K's and R's and T's in the name. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And I was there with my boyfriend in the 90s, Ari, and we were eating meat crab, and we realized that the meat in the meat crab was cat and not chicken. And we left in the middle because we were like super creeped out. And as we walked out, we went up to pay at the front because we're like, we just need to get out of here. We could hear cats meowing in the kitchen, and they were shut down within like a week or two for serving cat.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this Mikrob was a bunny rabbit, right? Okay. It was a male bunny rabbit, but he was kind of gay. You know what I mean? He liked to go to the mall and shit like that. And he liked pink. And, you know, for the 90s, it was like before that was super common with metrosexual men who, whatever, right? So, but we had this whole series of bunny rabbits that had, there was like Mikrob, there was Tom Yum, there was Pad See Ew. There was, at one point we kind of like, we ran out of Thai names and we named one beef with broccoli. I
hope you call Pad See Ew PSU. I don't want to play with that. Anyway.
Pad See Ew, right. So I think there was like
Thai dishes, by the way.
Oh, there was also Yum Yai, Yum yum. So there was like 4 or 5 Thai bunny rabbits, and then there was beef with broccoli, and then we were kind of done with the Thai food run. But Mikrob became like almost like a stand-in for my mother in a lot of ways, and like the best sort of thing to communicate with my mother through, right, at a certain point, right, because she was not, my mom just is not emotionally capable person, right, and she also like there was like some suspended childhood things that both she and I missed out on that got met there. Like my sister's the one who was into all the babies. Like I was not when I was a kid, but by the time Kara had outgrown it, like it became a mode of communication between my mother and I think it had a lot to do with the programming. When I first, Elisa's book, she did an update. Elisa E did an update on her Our Life Beyond MK Ultra. I just did a show with her and the Crimmies, and the book is coming out. You can pre-order it and whatnot. But there's a chapter, at least in the original, I haven't read the updated yet. I have it now, but I haven't read it, where one of her alters is a little bunny rabbit that lives in the bottom drawer of her shelf, right? Yeah.
It's also interesting that you're saying this. I mean, I have a lot of bunnies out here anyway, but this morning when I opened my curtains, the first thing I saw was a cute little bunny.
They're my favorite animal. Like it's funny, when I lived in Tucson, which is one of my most mind controlled periods of time, there was like hundreds of cottontail rabbits right outside of my apartment. Like there's some in Los Angeles, like near where we were on the trail that I live. But like that's the one food I will not eat rabbit. I will not eat rabbit. I like bunnies. They're sacred for me.
Oh, it's so interesting that you said that, because here, like as soon as no one's on the golf course anymore, the golf course is just ravens and bunnies and jackrabbits and me. But this morning I've been doing a lot of creative visualization as far as like what I'm living into. And I'm like, yeah, I might be catching my dinner by shooting a bow and arrow, like using a bow and arrow to catch rabbits. I've never eaten a rabbit, but I'm just thinking like, you know, election results, whatnot, like, okay, seem to be going down like the worst possible road. So I haven't done it. I'd like to never eat a rabbit.
You could live in Pennsylvania. It could be worse.
Did that happen? I don't even have
that happened. That happened, right? So, okay. But the other thing is like the symbology of Glenn Close boiling the bunny rabbits in, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to be ignored, Dan.
Right. And it's not, we all think of like boiling frogs, but you know, there's the boiling bunnies, right? And unless we have anything else to say about our Thai food friends, speaking of boiling bunnies, on to Kanye.
Yes.
Okay. So I sat through as much as I could possibly take, which was over 2 hours of the Lex Friedman and the Kanye interview.
Do you have it queued up, by the way, or should I grab it?
I don't have anything queued up.
Okay. Please continue.
Okay. So I have a completely different take on this than probably anyone else does.
Of course you do.
It's more general about Lex, but it took me seeing him with Kanye and me trying to understand what was happening to really clarify this vision. So I think that probably the points that you want to bring up and the conversation we're going to have around that is more in line with the controversy as it appears to be. So let's talk about that part first, and then I will take us off into La La Land, because if I take us into La La Land, we'll not be able, it'll be difficult to come back to 3 days. Yeah.
Okay, one thing that I'm looking for right now is, do you remember I sent you that thing about Lex and CFR?
Yes.
Do you still have that?
I think you sent it to me on my phone, right? On text?
Yeah. Let me see if I can get it up again.
Let's see if I can find it.
Multitasking is happening. My apologies.
No worries. Let's push pause for 1 second since we're both multi. Okay, she's got it.
Okay, so let me come back since I was multitasking. As I was watching Lex and Kanye, and you and I have already talked about this, I agreed with the vast majority of the stuff that Kanye was saying. But what was coming up was who is Lex, and why did Lex get this interview? Like, if this was 20 years ago, before the media was completely co-opted, you would have different anchors and news shows fighting for like who gets to interview Kanye. So why Lex? Why was Lex chosen? And I found this, and I had reached out to you, like, what do we know about Lex? Can you see this?
Yes.
Look at this. Podcast hosted by Council on Foreign Relations, Lex Friedman podcast. Yep. Now, when I click through this link, and I have another one of these links to show us for our second, or no, it'll come up later. But like, this happens a lot where I'll notice whatever is in the blurb, that's the gold, but you won't see what's in the blurb when you actually click through.
On everything. This happens to me constantly. Whenever I'm trying to dig the nugget, I can find it in the link. And if I click on the link, I can't find it. It's either buried somewhere that it's impossible to find and they don't have a search tool on that website, or like, so there's one of two things happening. Either they're like giving us a false flag in the search section in the thing, right? Or that, you know, they're intentionally trying to bury this. And unless you're willing to read through thousands of pages of the website, you're never going to find it.
I think it's number two. And I also think, and yes, I have sometimes been prone to conspiracy related paranoia, but I think they're fucking with us. That's what I think. It's like, you're right, but we're not going to really give you. I don't know if you remember years ago when I was working on that documentary that I'm not going to name because I like not having strikes on YouTube.
Right.
But when I was looking up the Gates Foundation, it came up on that little piece. The Gates Foundation is the foremost eugenics organization or something. Of course, when you click through, it doesn't say that. Did you get to the part, given that you didn't watch the whole thing, where Lex said that his feelings were really hurt that Kanye didn't trust him, and he was having like this like kind of personal, emotional trigger moment?
So I got to the part where he asked Kanye if he trusted him, and Kanye said no, and then went off on another rant. But I don't know that I'm done with that part yet. So yeah, I haven't gotten to the part where he said his feelings are hurt.
Watching, because Kanye speaks for a long time, and then when he comes back, Lex is like, I'm sorry, I'm just, you know, I just have to say how much that hurts my feelings. And like, he was not able to get over it. And it wasn't clear like how close they were. I know a couple times Kanye said, you know, I'm talking to you because you're my friend. And I'm like, yeah, right. And then these other moments where he like would distance himself, which I thought was interesting. So I felt like Kanye, it's tough because I feel like he was speaking a lot of truths that made total sense. The primary issue, which I already spoke about on Robert Phoenix, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, is just when he's talking about people in Hollywood taking advantage of him and other people. Those people take advantage of everyone, whether you're Black, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Chinese, whether you're gay, whether you're straight. That whole system is set up for those operating in those like parasitic executive positions where they have no actual skill or creativity to feed off of everyone else. Jews are treated just as bad in that system. So that I thought that was the one thing that wasn't really lining up for me. And then the piece that wasn't, okay, two more things. Did you notice him calling Lex out on his AI stuff and robots?
I don't know that I think there may have been some comment on it early in the interview, but nothing that I've listened to is like too heavily into that of the parts I've listened to.
So there were a couple moments where Kanye's like, well, and we're developing robots, right, Lex? Okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, really?
Yes, I heard that part. Yes, I heard that part.
I was like, wink, wink, transhumanist MIT shill. I know exactly what you're up to. That was what I was taking from that. So then you had Kanye speaking about equality, right? And let's put the past and all our victim shit behind us and just move forward, right? And those were moments where I was really vibing with him. But then he said this piece, I'm just going to pull up So Emily, can you help me remember 1125?
1125.
Thanks. All right, I'm going to share screen. And this was another moment where it didn't line up. It just wasn't lining up, where once again Kanye was contradicting himself. Okay, so 1125.
Okay, 1125.
Legendary artist, producer.
All right. Okay, this is close enough. Can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
What's your favorite thing, the thing you love the most about Kim from a Mario perspective and the princess? Looking back, was there a moment?
She's definitely my favorite of all time.
Yeah. Was there a moment that, you know, like that catches you off guard and you say, I love this human being?
Look at his eyes, dude.
mean-
that was weird.
It's just the DNA is like she's a mix of Rob and Chris.
Can you explain?
I mean, that's like a really high pool right there.
So, hello, eugenicist. This is why you love your wife, because she comes from a genetically superior DNA pool. Doesn't that go against everything that you're saying?
So, do you know who Rob is?
I have no idea who. I don't know anything about these Kardashians.
All right.
I don't know who they
You
are.
ready? You ready to get for this? Some people probably do know, but since you don't, this is going to be fun. So, Robert Kardashian, the first O.J. Simpson lawyer, the first 2 weeks of after the Nicole and Ronald Goldman were killed. Robert Kardashian was the lawyer until Johnny Cochran took over. Robert Kardashian died a number of years ago.
Okay.
Okay. So like Robert Kardashian is, you know, it's not just like, oh, hey, Rob. It's funny that he called him Rob, because my guess would be that he's never met Robert Kardashian, because I'm pretty sure, let's check when Robert Kardashian died.
I thought Kardashians were Bruce Jenner. I don't know anything about them.
So this gets into a lot of the OJ shit, right? So at a certain point, Chris was cheating on Robert Kardashian with Bruce Jenner, right? Which we can get into all kinds of crazy shit, but let's just stay on task here. He died in 2003, right? So Robert Kardashian died in 2003, and you know, I'm not fresh on my OJ conspiracies, but I used to be like, that was one of the first one of the things that really grabbed me, and I watched all that shit, and I was really into that shit, and you know, whatever, right? So Kanye's never met Robert Kardashian. Kanye only knows Jenner as being.
And is Kris Jenner genetically super? Is she like?
Let's see what her heritage is before, what her last name is before she gets. Okay, so oh my God, she's looking cuckoo too. These fucking people. What is going on? Look at this. Look at this. This is crazy. This is what she looks like now. This blonde one here. She has like the same whatever hologram on as Madonna.
No, that's not her.
That's her.
That's a young woman.
She has the same hologram on as Madonna now.
Wait, isn't she like in her 60s?
Yes. This is her new plastic surgery.
Why is she famous?
Because why are any of them famous? Robert Kardashian is famous for being an attorney to celebrities, particularly O.J. Simpson. I don't know why any of the rest of them are famous. They marry famous people. I don't know. Right? Her original name, what was her? Chris Houghton. Let's see if I'm trying to find out what her original last name was. Maybe Houghton. So she's not. Let's just see. I wonder what that is. There's no way. I can't click on that one.
She was with Kardashian before Jenner.
Yes, she was with Kardashian. The three oldest children are the daughters of Robert Kardashian. The younger children, the three oldest daughters and the son are the children of Robert Kardashian. The two
Rabbit, who breeds like this? She had 6 kids.
Well, you know, she's a good DNA factory, right? just ask Kanye, right? So
Does that
this
strike you as sounding a little bit eugenics
totally,
adjacent?
totally. I mean, I think that, like I
He
think
didn't
that
say, like, her
Hollywood is full of
personality. He didn't say like she's funny. It was her stock.
right. Hollywood is full of arranged marriages,
Right.
which he also talked about in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Route that marriage used to be for function rather than right. That came up in there as well. So 100%. Like Kanye is not like, Kanye is just playing his role. He's doing exactly what he is here to do. Just like Elon, just like Trump, these people are not your friends. It's entertaining as fuck to watch. It's for that, like the comedy and the troll factor is like epic, right?
I have to say, it was very high level comedy trolling. And that moment where Lex was on him for saying the Jewish media, and he goes, "Why? Because it's redundant." I could not stop laughing. I was like, all right, that was good, Kanye. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's fascinating to watch him fall in and out of hypnosis.
That's the thing.
And to be completely functional at like doing his program right and then to malfunction, right? Like, it's like, I mean, the only person we've seen go in and out on that level before is Britney Spears, but she has a lot less to work with than he does, right? So, but the thing that both of these people have in common, and I was talking to you about this on our private phone conversation the other day before you went on with Robert, right? Was that what I recognize about him, and there's other people like this, but that he has a very porous membrane. He's really easy to penetrate and animate with whatever you want to animate him with. So when we're looking at Kanye, it is not it is the wrong question to say, is he for real or is he controlled opposition? Is he a human being or is he a clone? Though I think that question is better than the first one. But the better question, and it's for him and for some other people, and we should ask this question of ourselves sometime because we all have holes. He's just Swiss cheese, right?
Yes.
What is he currently animated by? What thing has gained entry and is running the show at this moment, right? And so for him, something comes in, it's running the show, it leaves. He might be himself for 1 second, or he'll make a little comment like that, and then another thing comes in. So there are many, many factions out there, be they Jewish media, right? Whatever that is, be they agents, be they billionaires, be they high-level occultists and alchemists, be they less talented rappers than him, be they women,
Wait, hold up. Is he a talented rapper? Is he talented?
I don't know. But I don't know. But whatever, there's always someone less talented than whatever we're talking about, right?
The only reason I'm asking is because he's so incredibly arrogant about what a talented rapper is, what a talented producer, what a talented fashion designer is. And I just don't know. Like, is he? I'm not aware.
I don't know, because I don't like rap music, so I don't know what the difference is between a talent. I mean, maybe if it's really good or really bad, I can identify that, but the mushy middle is impossible for me to tell.
Well, and then he was also comparing himself to Brad and Leo. He's like, no one can understand except for Brad and Leo in terms of, like, I guess the quality of pussy he was banging. It felt a little bit odd.
Okay, we'll get to that part in a second. But whatever it has been figured out by a lot of people, right? That he is easy to penetrate and animate. Totally. And do your bidding through him. That just like as soon as people like whenever like squatters figure out there's a house that's easy to get into that has electrical wiring inside so you can charge your shit and do whatever you want, then like it becomes that everyone's doing it, right? Yeah. And when there's a house that it's not easy to get into and there's no benefit to being in there and there's so it's like that. He is like an unoccupied house that still has everything functioning in it, or at least appears to have everything functioning in it. And so everybody wants to get in and plug their shit in.
Well, I do think just for the sake of clarity, like, because I'm attuned to how attuned he is to language, I think there is a high functioning aspect to whatever this being is. If it's Kanye, if it's a clone, I think there is an authentic intelligence there, along with a, heaping buttload of control and God knows what else.
Right. So one thing about Kanye, and like we'll go here in just a second, because I want to save that for my portion, because once we leave the more 3D part of this, then we're not coming back. But one of the things of whatever he's presenting, the level of apparent narcissism and arrogance speaks of the probably I've never met somebody with such low self-esteem as this person has.
100%.
Right? Like this, I don't think I know a lot. So that's not true. I do know one or two people that have that level of low self-esteem, that they're just bragging about everything all the time. And like, I don't care about the thing you're bragging about. Like, this is not impressing me, but they can't stop, but they're not famous. And so it's not quite as embarrassing as like, it's embarrassing in the moment you're in it with them, but like the whole world isn't watching. They'll be able to live it down. Right. I have this, it's like a stunning level of low self-esteem for someone who has achieved as much as he apparently has achieved.
But I think it's directly proportional to how easy he is to control.
Yes.
Because look how much fame and attention he's getting now because of this. I think the lower the self-esteem, the more desire for fame, the easy control. That's the same sort of equation.
Somebody was talking about, I was listening to some clip on someone's podcast. It was talking about how like a lot of what he does is like take things that aren't cool and convinces his community that they're cool. Like
socks and flip-flops,
like preppy clothes, like button-down sweaters, like all that like shit that like Black people didn't like before. He convinces them that like, no, the Bill Cosby look is actually high fashion, and ugly shoes that look like fish fins, and you know, whatever. Like this idea that he's like some like, I don't know, his clothes look fucking weird to me. But that's
I don't and it's interesting to hear him talk about himself in the world of fashion. I haven't been in that world for a long time.
He talked about like he's like the most legendary fashion designer of all time. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was a little nutty. It was a lot nutty.
It was a lot nutty. But this like whatever is inside of there, whatever morsel of a human being, because I think there is some morsel of a human being somewhere in there, whether it is the original human being or just like a fractal that was used to populate the clone or the whatever we're looking at. This is a hurting, sad little boy.
Yeah.
Right. And I have a lot of empathy. He's making just an absolute ass of himself, no matter what side of this debate you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's kind of like when you see, you know, like a hooker who like thinks she's cool because or a teenager who thinks she's cool because she's been with so many men, and you're like, oh honey, you're used up and you're 16, right? Like it's like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to Tulsi, only in he says a lot of things that I think need to be said, and I was happy to hear them said, but they're maligned in such a way that clues me into the op. Like the fact that he's not naming any names like this Pasternak, which I'm excited to get into, but he's just using the Jews. It's like, okay, you're saying the things that everyone wants, the truthers at least, want to hear said, but you're not naming any names, and instead you're pushing it through this other op where, again, Jews are used as the defensive body armor for whatever other entities and organizations like to use Jews as their defensive body armor.
So, okay, so this is where, like, I think, okay, so if you watch the whole Tucker Carlson interview, because this all started after the Tucker Carlson interview, right? You watch the whole Tucker Carlson interview, what he said about Josh and Jared Kushner was exactly right. That's what needs to happen. And then people can do their own math and decide if this is a Jewish conspiracy or just a fucktard conspiracy or whatever it is. Right. But the way he exposed them, the way he explained it was incredibly powerful, right? But when he did the tweet in the middle of the night, what he should have said, but didn't because he's sloppy, I do believe that, is not, I'm about to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. He should have said, I'm about to go DEFCON 3 on fucktards like the Kushners, right?
Except he doubled down and defended the Jew part with Lex, which seemed like
wait. This is what I'm saying is his sloppiness, right, left room for something to come in and control him, and from then on out, he's doing it. The Jews. Right. If he had just said the names of the people and they were all Jewish last names, then the version of this, which is 100% true, which is there are lots of Jews in positions of power that are unearned and disproportionate. And people can figure that out for themselves. And then he's not clumping everybody in, right? Because you and I don't have those privileges. He's not clumping everybody in, and he's not low-hanging fruit for the fucking ADL and the people like Ben Shapiro who thinks everyone's anti-Semitic and right?
Okay, wait. So you think that the tweet was him honestly tweeting in a moment of sloppiness? You don't think it was designed for what we're all playing into now?
So I think that no, because I think if it was, I think he said what he meant in the interview with Tucker Carlson. And as soon as people saw that Kanye's Swiss cheese shop was open for business again, then everything's going at him, right? Yeah. Then he's fucking being whatever, however it's happening, whether he is some sort of technology that is being programmed or whether he is a human being but is under remote mind control, or I don't know what it is, right? Once that was out there, once he named names, which is what we all actually really want to hear, right, then then he was being attacked from every side.
I disagree though, because I feel like we can't ignore the Candace thing that preceded it.
But the Candace thing was just White Lives Matter. It wasn't, they weren't talking about Jewish people.
No, I understand. But don't forget, Candace announced Glorify, her payment platform, the
right,
same week that Kanye got himself booted from Chase Manhattan.
100%. So
it was all coordinated.
Right. So, but I think that was the original op that led into this other thing. He right. So he got to say what he wanted to say about White Lives Matter. Right. And probably didn't realize, because he's not as smart as he likes to think he is, that Candace was setting him up for this other thing because she's an opportunist, right? She was setting him up for that. She handled him on that. And she's his handler for certain things and not for other things. They were separate ops. But once one started, then he went to Tucker Carlson to talk about White Lives Matter. And then this other thing came out of the interview, planned or unplanned. But the first time he talked about this, he named names. He didn't say the Jews.
That's why I don't think Tucker was part of the op. I don't think Tucker was controlled. I mean, who knows? But I think it was the tweet. I don't think the tweet was a genuine, honest mistake. I think the control mechanism slipped in there because that's what got him unbanked.
It's entirely, there's one of two possibilities. It slipped in before the tweet, or the tweet. Well, yeah, okay. So it's entirely possible that a new level of control or hypnosis or some person bothering him or whatever it is.
He could have been texting with Candace before he did the tweet.
100%. Right.
Top of mind.
But I don't think it was his decision with that tweet to start this Jewish thing. But once it started, then parts of real Kanye and all the other voices in his head are like, I do what I want. I can say what I want. No. And they know he's going to do that. And so it's off to the races, and they don't have to control him so heavily anymore, because once someone tells him he can't do something, he's going to do that all day long.
But even the fact that the Harvey tweet leaked, I don't buy that was an accidental leak in the same way I don't buy certain lab accidental leaks.
Correct. There's no accidental leaks, right?
No,
there's no accidental leaks.
So I think after the tweet, it was gloves off.
If it was accidental, the moment it was discovered, it would have been pulled down.
Of course.
Right. Of course. And so that's how we know it wasn't accidental.
I know you're going to take us down some 5D rabbit hole, and I want to go there. But I think the Harvey piece feels extremely relevant. Mm-hmm. Is that his name? Harley?
I don't know if it's Harley or Harvey Pasternak. It's either L or V Pasternak.
So I do have a piece on that, but I want to pause because I don't want to get us too far ahead.
I feel like that's separate from the rest of this, because I feel like that's moving completely into MK and Cedars-Sinai territory and all that shit.
So the piece that I have speaks to how this is all a theatrical op, but I'm happy to wait on that. I want to hear.
So let's stick with Lex and Kanye. Yeah. Okay. So it took me watching this interaction to have probably thoughts that were free floating around in my mind begin to line themselves up into a narrative that I can explain. Okay. So you and I have been asking the what the fuck question about Lex Fridman for a while.
Yes.
And almost everyone that I talk to about Lex Friedman, they range from can't stand him to really like him and think his podcast is good. All agree that he's a little bit odd and laugh when I say I saw him on the trail and the only thing more painful than listening to him talk is watching him run. So they all get what we're talking about, right? Now, that said, I have enjoyed some of his podcasts, right? Like he's had some interesting people on and whatever that is happening there has produced some interesting material for us to comment on. And that's kind of how I decide if I enjoy a podcast or not, is does it give me anything to talk about? Not is it like, do I like it or not, right? Does it make me smile on the inside is not what it is, right? So when I was watching this, you know, I have always felt like there's an element to Kanye that seems to me like, what do they call those dolls that ventriloquists use?
Dummies.
That he looks like one of those things, like he's got those teeth and like, there's something about Kanye that has always looked like not a real human being to me, right? That has always looked like one of those ventriloquist or marionette kind of dolls, right? When I look at Lex, it's like what is going on here, right? Like, is he autistic? Is he, does he have like a level of like technology into him that has droned him in a way that has made him more robotic? Is he an actual robot that just has pretty good human qualities, and that's why we even are willing to entertain the possibility that he's a human? I just want to be very, very clear. This is me exploring my imagination. I am not stating any of these things as facts. Okay. Yes. He's like, when he ran by me on the trail, like the vibe I got from him that whatever he is, he seems like a nice person or robot or whatever. He didn't feel like, I didn't get evil vibes or anything like that, right? So this is me, not me trying to dunk on him. This is me trying to understand what we are looking at here, because it is being pushed into our face in a way that is impossible to ignore. Okay. Right. So when you and I were having our conversations the other day, I was telling you about Kanye being Swiss cheese and about he looked like a ventriloquist doll to me and he's just puppeteered and whatever. And then I went and I looked at Lex Friedman's page. I went and I looked at, wait, where did it go? I had his, where did my Lex? Okay, here it is. So I went to his Wikipedia page, right, to just do a little bit of recon on him because I was pretty sure he'd gone to MIT and he worked for Google and whatever. So he's known for machine learning, computer science, and artificial intelligence, right? He went to Drexel University and he got his, he's a teacher or he works at MIT. And his thesis for his PhD.
Hold up. I'm sorry to interrupt you. He works at MIT currently?
Yes.
Then why is he living in Austin, the propaganda capital of the world?
Let's continue with my path. And I can't say, so it says here under his career, Friedman's career began at Google working on machine learning. Friedman is a research affiliate and lecturer at MIT. His work at MIT involves research into human-centered artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicle research, deep learning, and personal robotics. In 2017, Friedman worked on computer vision, deep learning, and planning algorithms for semi-autonomous vehicles. Friedman's work has been published in peer-reviewed journals. So his podcast started in 2018. It was originally titled the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. That's fascinating because of where I'm going to go with this, right? Originally, that was part of his MIT course called Artificial General Intelligence. The name was later changed to the Lex Friedman Podcast to give more freedom as to which subjects to discuss. Guests include Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Magnus Carlsen, Jack Dorsey, Ray Dalio, Mark Zuckerberg, yay, blah, blah, blah. So all the players in the op, right? Okay.
Not to mention the whole host of SFI folks.
Right. Yeah, he's there. He's a synthesizer for the op into something else, and I'm about to go there, okay? All right. His thesis for his doctorate was titled Learning of Identity from Behavioral Biometrics for Active Authentication. Okay. It's learning of identity from behavioral biometrics for active authentication. Okay.
That's so creepy.
So I'm going to just go all the way with this. All right. This is just Emily's Mr. Toad's wild ride here. I think that what we're looking at is some sort of machine learn, it's an artificial intelligence version of Lex Friedman. I think he is his thesis. So I don't know. I don't know if we're always looking at the real one or always looking at a created one, or it's back and forth, right? But my guess would be that when he has the guests on, the idea is to learn a lot about them and from them to be able to create better facsimiles, AI versions, holograms, clones, all of this kind of stuff of them, and then be able to prove fidelity, how close they are to the real one. So I don't know if when we're watching the podcast, we're looking at the actual person and he's just trying to machine learn about them, right? And if this is weird, my computer just set up Dropbox and popped up a window right now. That is weird. I don't know if that
I would take that as confirmation.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're looking at learning from them or if this is fake artificial intelligence or clones or hologram versions of them that he's created, and they're presenting the interview to see if people recognize. Like, I think this is part of his project, right? I think
that would make total sense, because why else would he do a podcast? He has no personality.
Do we notice if there's a difference, right? Or if it's the real person, is he and whatever his systems are, like they come into his studio or whatever, and the studio, have you ever seen the movie The Congress?
No.
I've told you a couple times to watch it for various things. Guys, The Congress is, in my opinion, it's Austin. Robin Wright Penn. It's a feature of Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, which is here in Austin. And I think that what they're talking about is here, right? Like Michael and I did a whole show about Pindar and the Violet Crown where we got into this, right? Okay. Lex Friedman is here. Joe Rogan is here. Michael Malice is here. All like Aubrey Marcus is here. Blah, 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 and on and on and on. And Dell and Mickey and da, right? Okay. When you watch The Congress, right, at one point, Robin Wright Penn sells her likeness into the machine, basically. And when that happens, she goes for a full day of being filmed from all different angles, like what her face looks like when she says this, what it looks like when she laughs like this, and da. And then they have a perfect fidelity facsimile of Robin Wright Penn that will do all of her future roles. And she can never do a role again. And think about this. He has got some of the longest fucking podcasts. Like a few weeks ago, he did a podcast with someone for 7.5 hours.
Who was that with?
It's some Indian guy named, hold on. His name was, it was right before the Kanye West one. Balaji Srinivasan, about how to fix government, Twitter, and science, right?
7 hours?
7.5 hours. I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but apparently there's a lot of uncomfortable stuff discussed there about like technocracy would be my guess, right? Okay. So they come here to Austin. Like, it's fucking weird. How is he afforded? Like, like Joe Rogan, we understand he's bringing people here to do their show. Tim Pool, like Lex Free. Okay. He's Kanye West. Really? Right. He's had two. Right. Okay. So I want to show you something. Look at these pictures of these people that they're purporting to be the names they say they are. They don't look like real. They look like
Ben Shapiro.
Right? These are computer generated images of these people. They all have you
that nose or
right.
or that mouth. That is not.
Have you ever watched Westworld?
No.
Okay. Westworld isn't the only one that does this. In fact, I think the vision I'm remembering is from a different show, but not a show I watched as much of. Right? In some of these scenes and some of these science fiction shows, they will show pictures like that when they're moving into a character that is like a clone or a sleeve or whatever. And in Westworld, they retire characters and store them in the underground basement, right? And they look like that. They're just completely frozen in like one picture, right? Like these to me look like the machine learned generation of this person.
Totally. Go back up to the top. Look at what is that?
I don't know.
Next to his name.
Right. It's weird, right?
Not him. That's not
right.
him, right?
Right.
But he's wearing some sort of helmet and he looks alarmed.
Right. Look at these people, right? These pictures are all like, it looks like, if I showed you, I was trying to find a picture. Let me see, pictures of hosts in Westworld. I want to see if I can find a picture of them in the underground bases, like when they're in stasis. Let me see if, like, when they're in stasis in the underground, let me see if I can find one that is like how I'm thinking about it.
I did.
Okay. So here, like when they're in these glass, like when they go down for tuning up or reprogramming, they're in these glass rooms and they're just standing there like statues or frozen. And then if they take them out of rotation permanently, they store them naked in the basement, just staring ahead. And they look like the pictures Lex Friedman has there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm going to see if I can find one that is exactly what I'm talking about. Here, like, see, this is one that's being worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They don't look like real versions of people. They take them down, they make them naked, and they work on them. And they just have that like sort of blank fake. You're like, oh, this is obviously a mannequin or not a real person. Whereas like when they're moving around in the park, they at moments could fool you. Right.
So this is really resonant because I did think during the Kanye that it was the most human I had experienced Lex, and that he had personality and intonation and expressions in a way that I hadn't noticed before.
Right. So I actually think that this was real Lex, and some of the things we've seen before was not. That they knew that Kanye is a little bit hip to some things, or that either hip to some things that others aren't, or not as on board. Like he doesn't know about the op. Kanye doesn't know about the op you and I are talking about. Kanye knows about the Hollywood thing. He doesn't know about the IDW and all that shit.
Correct. He doesn't know about that. But that would speak to his like, I know what you're up to, Lex intonation. Correct. About robots.
Correct. Right?
I mean, correct. There's no getting around that he was signaling to Lex, I know what you're up to.
They were also in a different space than Lex normally is. They were in a very colorful room. It's almost like Kanye wasn't having any of that. He wanted to control the environment because he's paranoid.
Right.
Right. Or because he was trying to. So I think the first show that I really noticed that there was something funny with like the visuals and the way it was all was that Andrew Bustamante, that CIA agent he had on.
Yep. And
it feels to me like, I don't even know if that's a real person. Like that felt to me like, I don't know, there's something really weird about him to me. Right.
That was so creepy.
I don't know what this is. I don't know if the experiment is on the guests, if the experiment is on the viewers to see if anyone figures this out. I don't know if they even care if people figure it out, if this is just all about trying to achieve perfect fidelity, trying to achieve a level that is so good that we believe it, and that the person who the clone is of, or the hologram is of, or the machine learning, deep robotics, whatever, identification, authentication, that they're like, yeah, I feel comfortable being represented by that, because that was what was going on with this like Robin Wright shit, right? She wanted to see a video of somebody else who'd had that done that she knew that she could see if that she was buying it, right? So I'm throwing a stone really far out there. Like this is not me saying 100%, but I think what we are living through with Lex here, and what this is really all about is experimenting with this idea. Even if it's just like some kind of weird kind of like quantum data teleportation, right? Where the person is literally being interviewed, but they're being interviewed from their home, wherever they live. And like, it's being projected into this hologram or this clone that is sitting there in the room with Lex. And that clone and hologram is learning his facial features and his movements and vice versa. This is a machine learning experiment, right? In every direction.
It resonates and it lines up when you're looking at his background, what his thesis and his realm of focus is about. the fact that he's an MIT lecturer, which would intimate that he's lecturing at MIT in Massachusetts, but he lives in Austin with all of the other propaganda ministers that are being propped up by consilience, and that he's interviewing the same people and running the same schlock. I wonder if he's not being funded by those entities, DOD, whatnot, because I wonder if it's cheaper, easier, more efficient for them to have robots as their propaganda pushing talking heads versus having to blackmail actual humans, deal with their personalities.
Right? Like that's, and we're in the early stages. I don't think it's that controlled yet. I think they're still in this place where they're probably trying to convince these people that it's better if you sell us your name, image, and likeness. You can profit off of it until the end of time, and you can go fucking party down in South America on an island, and you don't have to deal with all of this shit, right? And we're that kind. Look, this person does not look real. This Fiona Hill, right? She doesn't look real to me. Look at this picture. Look at this guy, John Danaher. Like he looks like a fucking observer from Fringe, right? Like he doesn't even look human.
Look at Will Sasso's eyes.
Right. That's the close. Like he almost looks like Alex Jones there. Look at
Kurzweil, that doesn't look like Kurzweil.
Right. It's weird. The nose is weird. Look at Jordan Peterson.
No.
Right. Look at this person. Right. Look at Duncan. Look at this as the guy that really ticked me up in terms of my level of suspicion on a lot of things. Look at these people don't look like real people. These look like robots in skin suits.
Martin Rees looks like David Rockefeller.
Where's Martin Rees? Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But look at all these people. Look at who's in his roster of guests. Why would they put Ye on this show?
Right.
He's like, what doesn't belong here?
Right. Lex Friedman interviews a goose. These are these crazy. Remember when I was telling my story about the goose did you hear the story about the goose out here? This is literally right out in front of my apartment. 6 months ago, that's when I was talking about the goose. This is a different goose, but he's also obviously having weird interactions with geese out here, right?
So why would Rick Rubin talk to this guy?
Right. But look, I mean, the whole combination of people is bizarre, right? We are experiencing we are part of an experiment with this. This is an experiment, and the experiment is this.
Well, and this explains, because I've asked you many times, why does this guy have a show? Like, I don't get it. So this would explain it, is that it's an experiment that's taking place in the public sphere to see if people will buy it.
It's an omnidirectional experiment. He's being experimented on. The guests are being experimented on. We're being experimented on. I'm sure there's some other factions that I'm not even thinking about or considering. There's all kinds of shit going on. I know lots of really smart people that are like him in terms of they don't make eye contact. They are very awkward. None of them would consider doing a podcast unless it was for the purpose of overcoming some of their awkwardness. Right. And he did address how awkward he is in that one with Bustamante, when Bustamante was doing some of his CIA tricks to fool whatever kind of thing. Right. So, but there's a part of me, and again, this goes to when I passed him on the trail. It was painful to watch him run, but I didn't get dark vibe, evil vibe, anything like it. Right. And there's an argument that can be made here. And again, I'm going to go to Westworld, that I'm not saying it's ethical to conduct this experiment, but if he's conducting it, at least he's participating by making himself part of it and not just sitting back and watching it and let it happen to other people. He's putting himself into it. If you watch Westworld, the Ed Harris character, William, right? He's like the most obsessed with figuring out the maze of the park, right? He owns the park. And he can't fucking fix it. He keeps putting himself into these situations, right? That generally when someone is just trying to do something like evil scientist experiment to someone else, they just do it to other people. He's going in, right? He's going in and his, at times been scalped and shit like that in the thing, right? So I think Lex completely believes in this shit.
what I was going to say was like, you're not getting evil vibes because he thinks this AI transhumanist stuff is he doesn't have guilt. He doesn't have shame, but I don't think that means that he's not working for a techno-fascist.
100%. He's perfect for them because he really believes in this. He's
Right.
probably a super nerdy kid that was awkward his whole life, played video games, built robots and radios and shit like that, and figured out that he can do all of this neat stuff. He can create imaginary friends that seem like they're real. He can do it, all this kind of stuff. And he's just doing this. And he's kind of like, I'm sure he's not dumb. He's aware that there are fucktards with evil intent out there who are misusing whatever his intent is. But he's like, this is what I'm into. I'm doing this. And I know why I'm doing it. Whatever anyone else does with it, that isn't my concern. This is what I'm doing. And we can have a debate about the ethics around that and whatnot. But he has put himself in the middle of his own experiment. He's not conducting it from afar, and not like if it goes awry, if it gets figured out, if something goes terribly wrong or da-da-da-da-da. So on some level, he's an ethical scientist, right? Which is not the same as a lot of these other people who have been practicing scientism from their castles and letting all the people just, Bill Gates doesn't eat the fucking GMO corn he grows.
Oh, hell no.
Right. So my feeling is that Lex eats his own, whatever he grows. Right. It's kind of like the scientist who drops the acid that they make as opposed to just gives it to unwitting users.
I hear what you're saying. And I see that aspect, but I also see deceiving the public to this extent, not super ethical.
Right. I mean, we don't know. This is just me making stuff up. If it's just him experimenting with his own name likeness,
not just him, or he wouldn't have 2.2 million followers and he wouldn't be booking these guests. Who would want to talk to him?
Whatever it is, there's something funny afoot here. I've laid out lots of possibilities as to what I think it is. I'd love to hear feedback from other people that like to really go out to the wild edge with this. But I am pretty certain that there is something like this going on, that this is exactly what the things he teaches about and lectures on and writes about. This is the laboratory setting, right?
Yes.
People teach, they lecture, and then they go into the lab and they conduct the experiment. Yes. This is the lab. YouTube is the lab. Austin is the lab. I'm dying to run into him again on the trail or in a bar or something like that, and see sort of where one could go with this. But I think this was just momentary research while I was on the phone with you the other day. I have not dug deep. I should dig deep. It's on the list of the 10 million other things I could dig deep on if I could figure out the pocket dimension trick reliably that worked every time, right? But I think that there's something much larger afoot here. And I think people should watch the Congress if they haven't watched the Congress yet. And when you look at Robin Wright Penn in the geometric thick camera that's taking pictures of her from every angle, with every expression, with every word, and all of this kind of stuff, and then is going to upload it into the system that will now be her likeness, right? And we look at these people in these little thumbnails and stuff like that. It's it, dude.
It's resonant. I look forward to watching that movie. And
the Congress is literally. It is Congress Avenue in Austin, where the original this is where this is it. Alamo Drafthouse Films is here. In the map that I forget the guy's name that Michael likes to talk about. The map with pinned art at the top fits perfectly over the map of Austin, with the Capitol coming and then Congress coming down from it, and the way things spread out to the side. It's 1-to-1 perfect. It's like looking at Dave Paulides' map and looking at the map of the underground bases of the United States. Right. Mm-hmm. So the Congress, guys, it's kind of painful to watch at some moments, but I think this is really what's happening. I think this is what we're living in.
It's resonating on all fronts, and it would make sense as to why he's in Austin at all. Anyway,
he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would be really concerned to me with maintaining freedom in terms of the way you and I do. A lot of people moved to Austin because they didn't want to be part of the lockdown or the masks or the pokes or the whatever. He doesn't seem that way to me. Michael Malice seems that way to me, possibly. Joe Rogan, possibly. Mickey Dell, whatever. He does not fit that mold. He seems to me like he would be perfectly comfortable never leaving his house again.
Completely.
So, in fact, I feel like it is a push for him. It is him testing himself to leave his apartment every day and go out and be with people, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like that's hard for him.
Which could make it, actually, that could be a very like organic reason why he's playing with this, because it could be painfully uncomfortable for him to do these interviews, but to have this like robotic avatar do it for him,
right,
could be like the perfect solution for someone who's like hyper introverted, neurodivergent, whatever he is.
100%. Just send your likeness, right? And your intellect can provide the responses, but you don't have to deal with the social discomfort.
Right.
Right. But Laura loves, I've never watched it, but it's popping into my mind. There's a TV show she loves called Love on the Spectrum. And it's about like autistic people trying to date.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that when I think about Lex and vice versa. Right. So anywho, all right. Anything else we want to toss into this part, or let's move on to the,
do we want to do Harvey or Harley here, or
no, let's do it in the other side and then we'll go into Boy George, because I think they actually go nicely together. So,
okay.
All right. We're going to talk about Kanye's trainer and Boy George in Afterwords number 68. So if you want to hear that chat, join us there. Wordspodcast.locals.com, code down below. See you on the other side. Scooby-Doo. So
yeah.